Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Bizarre. That was bizarre, head-scratching, and I have no clue how to process the information that just happened. Really? The Eagles picked Jalen Hurts in the second round, 53rd overall? Now, just yesterday, I was defending Howie Roseman for not using that second-round pick to trade up for CeeDee Lamb, because there was an opportunity to grab an impact player. And guess what? That scenario was laid out perfectly. You had Mims there. You had some guys that can help on the defensive side of the football there. Think about this. Denzel Mims was available. Reagor plus Denzel Mims is better than CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion. That's perfect. It was there. Howie Roseman could grab that scenario that I was talking about. Think about how the narrative changes if the Eagles walked out of the first two picks with Jalen Reagor, even though I know people weren't fascinated by him. He is a player that could make an impact for this squad. Him and Denzel Mims, two guys that can totally fly. It would have been unbelievable. It would have helped this team out tremendously. But no, they get a Taysom Hill type guy, a gadget type guy, a guy who will play very limited snaps in the second round. Now, before I lose my mind, I need to let you know about Ravens Brew Coffee. And you know me, I drink 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cups of coffee a day. And you might say, Broads, you're crazy. Why do you do that? And I do it because I'm drinking fantastic coffee. The link is in the description. There is so much variety when it comes to Ravens Brew, okay? And it's just fantastic. It's the best coffee I've ever drank. And that's saying a lot because I have tried so many different types out there. And I'm a picky guy. And when I tell you this is the top of the line, this is the top of the line. And you need to make sure that you check out Ravens Brew Coffee today. I don't even know how I'm going to get through this. We will be taking phone calls. We will be discussing this with the fans. And I'm going to tell you, my inbox blew up insanely. This was the most amount of phone calls I've ever had. It won't stop. It's continuing to fill up, and it's even happening right now. I love it. We might even have 2 podcasts just taking phone calls because this is so mind-blowing. It's deserving. When I look at the teams I follow, I like to see their draft picks, their trades, their free agent signings. And I try and see how this impacts the franchise. How will this benefit them? How will it make them better? And this makes no sense. Now, I'm not questioning Jalen Hurts' character, his skill, or anything like that. But I'm looking at the value at the second round pick. Will there be times where this gadget stuff works and the defense gets confused and the Eagles make some noise on a certain play because he's lined up in so many different positions? I'm sure there will be. But I can't justify that compared to what Denzel Mims can do to this offense at a higher percentage, at a higher rate, being on the field more. You can only play around with Jalen Hurts so much. And when you listen to Doug Pederson and Howie Roseman speak afterwards on the Zoom call or whatever type of conference you want to call that to all the Eagles reporters, they're smiling, they're all giddy, talking about how they can utilize him with this offense. This is so silly. Sometimes I question Doug Pederson's brain. I think he's a good person. I'm not going to call him a stupid person. That's not where I'm going with this. But in terms of sometimes how his brain works, I just question it. That's all I'm trying to say. I question it. He doesn't think on his feet very well. Sometimes his decision-making makes me go crazy. It makes my blood boil. I question a lot of the decisions made by Doug Pederson a lot of the time. And same with Howie. See, when a move is made like this, though, Howie gets a ton of blame, and it makes sense. You don't make this type of decision on your own, though, especially drafting a quarterback after you paid Carson Wentz so much money. After you get rid of Nick Foles because he wins the Super Bowl, he wins a playoff game the year after, you get rid of him, you're proving to Carson Wentz that it's his team. You give him the big payday. You don't just draft a quarterback in the second round and think that's only the GM's voice. Doug Pederson had a big time say. Jeffrey Lurie had a big-time say. And then you also have Jeff McLean going out there talking about how J.J. Arcega-Whiteside last year, there was a big influence from a top dog involved when it came to that pick. And when I processed something like that, it had to have been Jeffrey Lurie. Now I'm thinking about how much voice he has on these decisions. And you don't want an owner that steps on so many toes. You hire these people so they make the decisions. That's your job as an owner. That's what you're supposed to do as an owner. You own the team, and then you allow the people you hire to make the big-time decisions. I get being involved in conversation and having some sort of input, but from the way Jeff McLean talked about the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside thing, that's as if Jeffrey Lurie was pushing Howie Roseman to do it. And when you look at this Jalen Hurts thing, it had to have been a team decision. And that makes me question the top of the Eagles, and that's where miserable things happen, when you start questioning the top. This was a draft pick where it was full-on Cleveland Browns. What the hell are they doing? You don't want to have those type of picks. People were upset with Jalen Reagor, but it made sense. People were upset with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside because he stinks, but that made sense. Sidney Jones, he got injured. He was a star at Washington, but the pick made sense. It's not justifiable, and that's a big-time issue for me. I would have never, ever held on to that 53rd pick if I knew it was going to be this. I would have went up and got CeeDee Lamb in a second. But once again, the scenario I wanted was laid out perfectly. It's on Howie Roseman in this front office to then execute the game plan, and they did not do it. This is one of the worst draft picks I have ever seen. It's mind-blowing. When I first saw it, I thought there had to be a trade, right? It had to have been some sort of, you pick this guy, you trade him, and you get assets. Or you trade Nate Sudfeld, and then you get assets. Even though that's still stupid in my opinion. There's just too much value on the board in the second round. Think about Miles Sanders. Think about Dallas Goedert. Think about Zach Ertz. Think about Deshaun Jackson. Think about LaShawn McCoy. Think about Brian Dawkins. Impact players are on the board. And then Joe Douglas is over there rubbing his hands, smiling. There's Denzel Mims going to Joe Douglas. This was a horrendous pick. Whether there are times where plays work or not, value-wise, this was a horrendous pick. If this happened in the 4th or 5th round, you don't talk about it as much. It's still weird because it's Carson Wentz, and the whole QB controversy thing is the conversation that's going to loop once again, even though it shouldn't. A couple bad passes here, a couple bad drives there, and we should try Jalen Hurts. You know it's coming because there's plenty of people who hate Carson Wentz in this city for some reason. They don't believe that he's the guy, so it's going to happen. I don't know why they brought him in here. It's going to happen. But if it happened, if they picked him in the 3rd, 4th round, the conversation changes. When you pick him with the 53rd, it's disgusting. I thought that they were better than this. I know that it's fair to question the front office, but this is abysmal shit. It's that simple. It's embarrassing. It's pathetic. It's a really ugly, tough look. And the way that they are so giddy afterwards, it bothers me. It's like they're delusional and they don't understand. They see this as perfect execution. Prove me wrong. Please, prove me wrong. But I don't see it. And I think it's fair to be really upset with what they did. It's almost as if anything else that happens in this draft, who the hell cares? Because they butchered it. They butchered it. They didn't butcher it with Jalen Reagor. It might have not have been the guy that everyone wanted because they were so fascinated with CeeDee Lamb, but still, he was a player that made sense and he would help this football team. There was an over-under on his yards and it was 800.5. So over-under 800.5. If you're telling me with Miles Sanders, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey eventually coming back, and some other pieces in that offense, that Jalen Reagor is giving you 800 yards. And I think Vegas is on the money more times than not. They are around the ballpark. That's why they are Vegas. They are around the ballpark more times than not. So if he gives you around 800 yards, you are so satisfied with that. That's fine. At pick 21, you can't expect elite, game-changing number one wide receiver, but you can definitely look for a guy who will be beneficial to the team. And the way that he carries himself, too, he's got an attitude that I really like. It's so hard to talk about other players right now, and I wanted to speak more about Reagor with whoever we got in the second round, but now it's so hard to do that. Real quick, though, on Reagor. He was committed to Oklahoma. He decommitted because he wanted to stay home with his family because there was some family stuff going on. He chose to transfer to TCU and stay in Texas with his family. But he did commit to Oklahoma, and he had offers from Alabama and other SEC teams. And I think it's funny how the narrative changes if he plays for a different logo. People look at him differently. If he has a better quarterback. Think about if he played with Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson played at TCU. It's a totally different statistical thing to look at. You know, the stats are completely different. So I don't love comparing the stats because context matters. But once again, it's so hard to talk about the linebacker Taylor from Colorado that they got in the third round, who I'm intrigued with. I think he's fast. He's a little undersized, though. He's a project. He's a guy who can play a little bit all over the place there, and he can do a lot of different things. He's versatile. He'll need to grow. He'll need to develop, but he's interesting. Who cares? Who cares? Because Howie Roseman, Doug Pederson, and Jeffrey Lurie screwed this whole thing up. And I put them together. It's not one person's fault. It's not just Howie's fault. I don't like that. I don't like just yelling at Howie Roseman. I'm not saying he's a good drafter and he doesn't deserve blame. He deserves a lot of blame. But so does Doug Pederson, and so does Jeffrey Lurie. I'm not letting them off the hook. They deserve just as much blame as Howie Roseman because they have a voice. They all communicate. This isn't a one-person job with the way the Eagles work. It's so ridiculous to think what just happened. And are they going to trade Jalen Hurts? They're not going to trade Carson Wentz, but are they going to trade Jalen Hurts? You hear them talking about being QB developers. I'm sorry, what? This is the NFL we are talking about here. You have Carson Wentz. You have your guy at 27 years old. Think about that. He's 27. He'll be, 28 in December or so? This isn't the time to get the backup quarterback who plays a couple snaps. This is the time to get your quarterback players who will help him. Help your quarterback. Please get this guy someone who can help. And you got Reagor, and you can get Mims, two players who can fly. It's a no-brainer in my opinion. I don't know how the hell they screwed it up to this degree. You know, a lot of people going in said they're going to screw it up somehow. And to an extent, okay, I get that. But this is to an all-time different level. He's a good teammate. I'm sure he is a good teammate. And you know what? I value the way that he handled everything in his career. I really do. I mean that. He seems like a high-character kid. Someone who is so respected. You know, really, from everything that happened at Alabama, being the backup quarterback, going to Oklahoma, battling, I don't think anyone's ever said anything bad about him as a person, as a competitor, as an athlete, as a quarterback, from the leadership qualities and all. But that doesn't mean that this makes sense. And going back to as a quarterback, I just mentioned, no one's really said anything bad about him being a quarterback. His skill level is not that high. In college, yes. We've seen plenty of college quarterbacks not work out in the NFL. Let's not act like he has this skill set that is eye-popping. I'm not going to go that far. If you don't use him in a way where he's taken so many snaps, I guess it doesn't matter to a degree. But if you want to use him as this disguise, he's going to have some sort of game to him as a quarterback. I can't believe I'm sitting here having this conversation. I can't believe it. It really is repulsive. I was stunned. I didn't move for 2 hours. Just sat there and all. Kept scrolling Twitter, waiting for a tweet to say, 1, it was a joke. 2, that he got traded. But that did not happen. All right, it's time to take some phone calls. It is. It's time to take some phone calls. Where did I put those phone calls? Here they are. We had so many, like I said, so many phone calls. And it's to the point where I'm questioning possibly doing 2 podcasts this weekend. This one and maybe another one because so many people got in. I loved it. It was so cool to see the voicemail box get flooded. The phone number is 856-442-9805. Let's dive into this because it sure was one hell of a draft. One hell of a draft.
Hey, bros. I don't even know what to say right now. I feel like the front office has completely lost their mind. I saw your tweet, and I completely agree. It's when a guy like Zach Bond is on the board, how can you pass that up when your linebackers are Jatavis Brown and T.J. Edwards? Like, I just feel like they really didn't go after need here. And if you're trying to go for a nice, platoon type of quarterback and go after a guy like Taysom Hill, maybe you can find a diamond in the rough and maybe as an undrafted free agent. But you don't waste a second-round pick on Jalen Hurts. And I'm disappointed as a fan. Thanks for taking my call. Fly Eagles fly.
Oh, it's so sad to hear someone end with the sad fly Eagles fly. You don't take him at 53. Hill, he was undrafted, and Drew Brees was so much older in his career when all of that took place. This is a copycat league. I understand that. When teams see things work out, they try and implement that to their own style. I'm all for working that into the Eagles' offense, and I like it. I do think that it is a genius idea. But this is them trying to outsmart themselves, not at that pick. I can't understand how this is possible.
A quarterback? A quarterback in the second round? Ay, 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 dude. I cannot believe this. You know, I'm always standing by Howie this whole time. Wasn't crazy about the pick last night, but feeling okay about it today. And hey, I'm still not going to jump on the board and say, hey, fire Howie and all that crap, but we got some serious explaining to do. We have a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Top 5. And we have holes on our team, on our defense, and still on the offense. And we're taking a backup quarterback. Frustrated.
I don't know if Carson Wentz is a top 5 quarterback, but that's a conversation for another day. The point you brought up that made a lot of sense is they need help in the secondary. They have a lot of guys on 1-year contracts. Jalen Mills, Will Parks. What's going to happen with Sidney Jones? They need to retool this thing and add some depth to those positions that can be here for the future. They do need a linebacker. Now, they ended up getting one in the 3rd round, but he's more of a longer-term project. Listen, in the 2nd round, I was all for going for another wide receiver. I did think that they were going to go with a cornerback at the end of the day or a secondary piece, which would have helped this team a lot. The point you made was great. There were too many other holes. The gadget players are awesome to have when you don't have so many things you need to fill. It didn't add up. It didn't add up when you look at what the Eagles needed to get in this draft. I'm sorry. It's mind-blowing that we are sitting in this position.
Hey, bros. It's Shane here. All I'm guys saying, Taysom Hill 2.0, and that's a good pick.
Was that sarcasm? I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea if that was sarcasm or not. It sure sounded like it. There might have been a smirk involved. There's no way that anyone can be satisfied with what just happened, right? I mean, there's literally no way that there's an Eagles fan out there thinking, this makes sense. I like what we did here. Oh, if Carson gets hurt, at least we have a backup quarterback. You get a veteran backup quarterback. You get your Joe Flacco's, your Nick Foles, your Josh McCown's. Those are the type of guys you get. I get that Carson Wentz gets injured. I'm not dumb. I've brought it up. It's something to think about. If he gets hurt again next year, now you're talking about a really long time of constantly getting hurt, and it's an issue. You do not pick Jalen Hurts, 53rd overall, after Carson Wentz just played 16 regular season games and helped your team get to the playoffs. This is not the time to do it.
Yo, bros, this is Carm from Scranton. I hope you're as disgusted as I am about this Jalen Hurts pick. You're telling me that you decided to pay Carson Wentz, your franchise quarterback, $128 million, and you give him a slap in the face by drafting a backup quarterback in the 2nd round instead of giving him some much-needed weapons. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy about the Jalen Reagor pick, but Denzel Mims was on the board. He's still available. You take him, and then you basically fill all the holes in the wide receiver game. I just don't get it, dude. I don't know. I hope you're as disgusted as I am. I still enjoy the show. Goodbye.
I am definitely just as disgusted as you. Denzel Mims was falling. And you can argue, why is he falling? Should you be skeptical of picking someone who is falling like that? He had the interview with Inside the Birds talking about how he was scared of Philadelphia, which ended up going on all these blogs, and people saw it on Twitter. It got them scared. Oh my God, is this a Nelson Aguilar? Typical overreaction to seeing something so silly. I wasn't afraid of that. He's talented, he's fast, and he would help this football team when it comes to a big-time need that they had to get. I liked Reagor. I don't think that was the ultimate finish when it comes to the wide receiver room. They needed to get more, and they had a guy fall right on their laps, and I didn't expect Denzel Mims to fall that far. It didn't make a lot of sense for him to fall that far, and he did. And Jalen Hurts is the answer? Stop it.
Yo, Broads, I haven't been more mad or confused about a draft pick ever. I don't understand the argument they're going to use him as a Taysom Hill type. He's not Taysom Hill. He's not a receiver. He's not a running back. He is a quarterback. We don't need a quarterback. If you want someone like that, they should have taken Lynn Bowden or whatever his name is out of Kentucky. That's a guy who can play the quarterback, the running back, and the wide receiver. I was just dumbfounded by that pick.
Dumbfounded is a good way to describe it. And with all due respect to Jalen Hurts, honestly, with all due respect, I don't see him as that great of a quarterback at the NFL level to begin with. I do think he's a good teammate. I do think he's a high-character guy. Okay? Are we drafting the second-round players just for that? You need to have the talent, too. You need to be able to be on the field, too. I'm not talking about 7, 8 plays. And once again, I do think it's important to at least bring up the fact that Carson Wentz gets hurt, because I'm a Carson Wentz guy. I love him to death. But I also will talk about the concerns with him. And whether it is a knee, a hand, a wrist, a head, there is something to be said about the fact that he does get injured. And I love Carson, but he gets injured. This still isn't the time to do it. You just paid the guy how much money? So it doesn't matter if he's getting injured. Look at the guaranteed money. Look at the contract you just signed him. He's your guy. He's your guy. Don't act like Jalen Hurts is going to come in here and bring the Eagles to the promised land. You sign your veteran backups for that. Disgraceful. Disgraceful.
I can't even begin to fathom what the Philadelphia Eagles just did in this second round. Bros, you said it best. Keep pick 53. Keep pick 53. And I actually watched your video earlier today on the Jalen Reagor. And I was like, you know what? I like the Reagor pick. I slept on it. Great pick. But this is absolutely just mind-boggling. I've never seen a pick where I have just been speechless. I don't know what to say. This is just absolutely stupid, and I cannot believe that the front office literally let this happen. Unreal. This is horrible.
It's one of the worst picks I've ever seen. I've experienced some bad picks, but once again, when you look at what they drafted and the player they picked, even if it doesn't work out and the player isn't as talented as they thought it would be, okay. I don't get this at all. I love hearing everyone's reaction. You should be pissed off. I'm sorry, you should be pissed off. When something happens with Jalen Reagor and he gets picked in the first round, everyone wanted CeeDee Lamb. I don't understand the outrage there. It's totally okay to be so annoyed and so pissed off because the front office just made a big-time mistake and did not help out the football team at all. There were better wide receivers in the first draft other than Jalen Reagor. Was Jalen Reagor a little bit of a reach? Sure. If Vegas has him at 800 yards, okay, you're still getting 800 yards. You're not getting much out of Jalen Hurts. He's not going to be able to play enough to get enough out of Jalen Hurts. And that's factoring in Carson Wentz being healthy. But once again, I'm satisfied with Mims and your backup quarterback over Jalen Hurts and no Mims. or even a player in the secondary that they would have picked in the second round.
Hey, bros, I'm a huge fan. I have to bring up this Eagles pick here. What are we doing right now? I'm confused. I don't want to run this type of offense, the Taysom Hill type of offense. I don't want to run this. This is going to be so weird. I hope it's a trade. I'm hoping it's a trade, but I don't know right now. This is crazy what's going on. Howie Roseman better prove us all wrong.
It is pretty crazy. To process what's really going on here, I know it's hard to digest, and honestly, I'll sleep on it, I'll wake up, and I'll still be shocked and stunned. There's no way it's going to rub off that quickly, but if you just take a couple deep breaths and you try and realize what's actually happening, this is crazy. This is absolutely absurd. And I'm almost intrigued by how dumb it is. I know that sounds so silly, and it is, but I'm almost intrigued by how stupid of a decision and how this makes no sense at all. For some reason, I'm almost like, wow. How is this real? How are they going to defend it? What are they going to do with this guy? What is the point of this? If I'm Carson Wentz, I'm hurt inside. And that's not to be soft, but I'm a little hurt inside. You just paid me. I went through the Nick Foles stuff. How are you bringing in another guy? Aaron Rodgers? That's a different scenario. They get love. Okay, you've seen the Green Bay Packers do this before with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers himself. I know it's a little shocking because of where Aaron Rodgers is in his career, and they went to the NFC Championship game, and he has that attitude where he's a dog and he's a competitor as an athlete, so it bothers him, but this is something that the Green Bay Packers do. This is out of left field. And when the Eagles needed to get for sure guys to help out their quarterback who had so many practice squad players out on the field last year, they do this. And what about Jim Schwartz? Now look, free agency was all about him. They got Darius Slay, they got Will Parks, they added to the defensive line. Still though, you got Taylor from Colorado at linebacker. That's nice. But really, what about Jim Schwartz? He didn't get much substance.
Yo, bros. Really? Really? You know what? I do not want to hear nothing about them saying we're trying to do, or I don't want to hear any similarities of us wanting to have him run like Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill was undrafted. Denzel Mims was in your face. Jeremy Chin was in your face. And you're doing this. They value the backup quarterback way too much to be spending it on Hurts. I don't care how much of a leader you are. I'm dumbfounded. I'm dumbfounded. I'm lost for words, bro.
That was me for about 2.5 hours. I had to sit there stunned, mouth wide open. Here comes the dog licking my face, right? Trying to play. He had a toy in his mouth. He's trying to play with his father, and I'm stunned. I felt like a horrible father. Are you kidding me? I couldn't even play with my dog. I couldn't even enjoy it. He's such a cute face, you know? He licks me. We play fetch. We hang out. He looked so sad. You know why? Because I was so sad. Oh, man. It really happened. I'm not dreaming. Pinch me, please. Pinch me.
Hey, bros, man. I'm from North Carolina. Been a Philly fan since I was 5 years old. The only thing, I'm just speechless right now with what's going on with the draft. It's just, the front office, it's hard to explain. Like, you literally kept the second round pick that we could have used to trade up in front of the Cowboys to get CeeDee Lamb to draft a backup quarterback that we could have gotten in the, fourth, fifth round. Like, we got Nate Sudfeld, So I'm just speechless right now, and it's just disappointing. And to me, I think Howie Roseman needs to go. He's done, man. I'm sorry. It's just sad. I'm just speechless. As an Eagles fan, it's disappointing. Waited so long for this draft, get wide receiver help for Carson Wentz. It just seems like they don't care about Carson, man. But I don't know, man. Thank you, man. Thank you for listening over there, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for calling in. It does seem like they disrespect Carson Wentz, though. They've done that with other quarterbacks before when it comes to this organization. I mean, Donovan McNabb didn't have all the guys. They ended up getting Terrell Owens at one point, but let's not act like he had a ton of studs and he had all these wide receivers. They neglected him at some point as well there throughout his career, and it seems like they are doing the same thing with Carson Wentz. In terms of Howie Roseman and it being time for him to go, he is a cap wizard. I do think that there's something to be said about his skill set, and he is tremendous at that skill set. Once again, though, and this isn't to defend Howie Roseman. He's a part of this issue. But this is an organizational problem. Doug Pederson has a ton of say in what goes on. Jeffrey Lurie has a ton of say in what goes on. It's a team collaborative effort, and they're all failing. Howie deserves blame, but so does Jeffrey Lurie and so does Doug Pederson. And I guess, to be fair, if you wanted one of those guys to go, Howie Roseman's the best guy to go, or the most realistic guy to go, because Doug Pederson ain't getting fired yet. You're not getting rid of Jeffrey Lurie. So if there is a guy, it's Howie Roseman. But guess what? I don't see that happening. I just don't. And I think there is value in what he does well. So maybe there's a way that they can bring in a guy who evaluates the talent and picks the talent and how he's a part of the money stuff. I don't see that happening right now, though, because it seems like they support this. For some reason, they support this. Wow, I didn't realize I was a fan of the Cleveland Browns. This is crazy. We're not done talking about this. There's no denying it. We will have plenty of more podcasts about this. By the way, Hurts, he said, I have no idea what my role is. I'll leave you at that. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe. Thank you guys all so much for watching. And I will see you next time.